All right, welcome to Jump Shots from the Goal Line. I'm your host, Jonathan Dugan. I'm joined tonight, as always, by John Henningsen. Guys, this is gonna be a weird episode. This is kind of an instant reaction. Sky is falling. Holy shit moment kind of episode. Um, if you've listened to the show this is our 51st episode. If you've been listening since the beginning, it's no secret, and we make it no secret. We are Phoenix Suns fans. We cover every sport on the freaking planet, it seems like, but we profess our loves for our teams, and the Suns are definitely one of those teams. And holy shit, my God, Henny, the shit done hit the fan tonight, didn't it, brother?
Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. I was trying to stay optimistic today, like, hey man, who knows? We're at home, whatever, this, that. We've got some dudes still, so I still had some hope. But yeah, this was not great, Dugan. I'm not, there's no real sugarcoating it. This was not a particularly enjoyable experience, and I'm just already focused on the little tweaks around the roster and changes that need to be made, to be honest. But we can talk about the game too if you want. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll jump into the future storytelling, of course, because it has to be said. Because ultimately, what it boils down to is the Phoenix Suns were in the finals 2 years ago, up 2-0, blew that. Last year, they have the number one seed, the best record in the league, get embarrassed by the Dallas Mavericks. And then this year, they make the big move to go out and get Kevin Durant, which we all agree with. I think even after the series, it's tough to disagree with the trade. I mean, maybe we make that argument tonight. I'm not sure. But then Chris Paul gets hurt again. Definitely affected the team. DeAndre Ayton, I don't know where his mind's at, but it's not on the court. And then the trade absolutely pillaged the bench. The Suns have the worst bench in the NBA, I would gander to say. And going into tonight's game, if we're going to keep it at a micro level initially, you couldn't have had too much hope. I know you said you were somewhat going into a positive mode. Yeah,
I was in fan mode. I was just like, come on, man. Why not? Why not?
You put your fan hat on.
And I'll still put it out there. I still don't really believe that strongly in this Denver team. Like, this is not a wow team to me. It's more.
We'll jump into that, right?
Yeah, I'll point the mirror at the Suns squarely.
We were texting all day, you, me, and Matt Hesse, who's been on the show, and you even called me out at one point, like, "Damn, Dugan, where's the optimism that we're used to?" And I just had a bad feeling, roles,
dude. It was uncomfortable. I didn't like it one bit. And I'm doom and gloom, man. I do doom and gloom.
I went to the office today wearing my Dan Marley Suns jersey, just with some hope and a prayer. I talk more shit about DeAndre Ayton than anybody that I know. But the moment it came out that he wasn't playing, and I knew Jock Landale was going to start, which nothing against Jock. He's played actually very, much better than we can imagine this series. But then Shamet was going to start, and all of a sudden your bench is just even worse than what it was. I knew going into it, this was going to be a rough night. Did I expect a 25-point blowout night? No, I didn't, because I didn't think they would let that happen 2 years in a row. But holy shit, they did. The circumstances weren't in their favor. The cards that they were dealt didn't fall in their favor. Injuries suck. Rib contusions suck. But, Henny, are we going to look at this and think this is way deeper than just a couple injuries, and this is just an institutional problem by this point?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something a bit more. I don't think there's any question. And honestly, I don't really like doing this or whatever, but I don't see how you go much beyond Monty.
Right.
And or James Jones, or however you want to look at it. Like, whether you look at this roster and you say, yeah. So exactly, it's somewhere institutional, because you can't either say that this roster actually was fine, which I wouldn't say that this roster was. It wasn't a great roster, a perfect roster by any means. And the big part of the flaw is that we have reliance on a 40-year-old point guard, essentially. That's just a problem that we knew we had, that we can accept. what have you. It is what it is. But so they have to retool the roster a little bit, but I can't get past Monty Williams and the fact that I just watch other teams that I see have lesser rosters compete at a higher level. Take, for
Yeah.
instance, the Miami Heat right now.
The
Like that is
Timberwolves the round
clearly
before.
there are just there are the Pelicans gave us a hard time last year. The Pelicans couldn't even make the playoffs this year. That was a roster that, given match for match, game for game, we felt sometimes at like a it felt like we had to play from behind the eight ball in some regard. And I can't like particularly pin it. I can't wait to see some of the breakdowns because my eyes aren't perfect enough to pick up on all of this immediately. But what I do know is that we just never come with anything different. We come with
No.
what we have. I feel like Monty rolls the ball out, for lack of a better term, and then we're expected to go. And there's never anything that changes, no adjustments. And then on top of all of that, there's no heart in these elimination games, at least
No.
not in a way that produces any results.
Not the last 2
That much is
years.
clear. Yeah, that
Yeah.
much is clear.
Yeah, and dude, I mean, you can't blame Matt Ishbia. He's brand new, right? And the thing going into this now is this is his freaking team now. So if you have some kind of misguided loyalty to Monty Williams, and I know we sound so reactionary, and that's the whole point of this episode is it is an instant reaction pod, so forgive us. But
Yeah, we'll talk about it
two,
again. But my
yeah,
opinions are my opinions today at this
yeah,
minute.
yeah. But if we're gonna look at this holistically, right? Like this team has had a problem since the playoffs last year, not just the Mavericks game. You mentioned it, the Pelicans game. That Pelicans team had no business pushing the team last year to 6 games. It did. Then they get blown out by a shit Mavericks team. And it was a shit Mavericks team because they got blown out by the Warriors. That didn't
Agree.
even make the playoffs this year, right? Then this year, they get pushed to their limits by a Russell Westbrook-led Clippers team, and that's all that team was, right? If you look at it, yeah, they had Kawhi one game, and that was a fun game, but they lost that game. And then the rest of the series, it was never an easy series, and it should have been, right? And that should have been ringing alarm bells in our head. And I think our fandom kind of was like, okay, well, KD is getting used to the team, and that is to an extent an excuse, but you look at this team and you mentioned it. There's no freaking heart. Outside of Devin Booker, Booker puts everything on the line. And the only way we won games this year is when he went nuclear. Kevin Durant couldn't make a shot all playoffs, which was wild because when he played in the regular season, he looked good. But in the playoffs, he scored, but he didn't look good. DeAndre Ayton gave up on the team. And I'm not saying the injury. I'm saying all the behavior before. Leaving the bench when Devin Booker's giving a speech, not hustling back on defense, ball watching. He is a huge problem. Chris Paul being perpetually injured. When he's on the court, slowing the ball down to the point where they're predictable and you know exactly what they're going to do, and it's easy to game plan for them. And then Monty, like you said, never making adjustments. Putting Landry Shamet, our only bench player, into the starting lineup when, to be honest, the issue wasn't that 5th guy in the starting lineup. You have to put Jock in tonight, and I get that, but why make the move to put Landry Shamet, your only guy producing on the bench, in the starting lineup and weakening an already probably the weakest bench in the playoffs? Just asinine. And now you go into it and you have to look at this team overall. What were the issues? We already mentioned the coach. He's probably gone because it's 2 years in a row that they've underachieved and they've been embarrassed, right? But now you look at the roster construction of the team. I'll give James Jones this. He's got nuts. He'll pull off a big trade. He pulled off the big trade for Chris Paul 3 years ago, and it worked the first year. Then this year, he pulled off the big trade to get Kevin Durant. Everybody, including these 2 podcast hosts, got excited. But if you watched any of the games this year, we mentioned it from day freaking one. This bench was putrid. It was embarrassing. The signings they made in the offseason were stupid, right? Jock Landale, even if he played well this round for the minutes that he put in, should be your 11th guy off the bench. Landry Shamet should be your ninth guy off the bench, and he's making $10 million a year. Then the rest of your bench are 2 guys that you didn't want to play. You got off the top of the freaking trash bin, because they got cut or because they had to be included in a trade, and there was nobody else to turn to. James Jones is so guilty in this. And I think we're in for a massive culling the moment the offseason starts, because the Suns are going to watch the rest of these playoffs and know they should have beat every team in the playoffs with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And if DeAndre Ayton has his head on straight, and that's coaching too, by the way, that falls on Monty. If Monty can't get DeAndre Ayton going, that's on him. And Chris Paul not having an adequate backup for him, that goes all the way back to the Tyrese Halliburton mess up and drafting Jalen Smith. That's on James Jones. I can go on and on and on, and I'm going on a rampage right now, and I'm going on a huge, like, I'm on my soapbox, but this is how flawed this team is, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt, man. I'm with you on a lot of these decisions. Like, obviously, we've ridden James early and often. Basically, prior to the KD deal, was like his get out of jail free situation.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was kind of like, okay, well, he brought this in, and obviously he was a part in bringing Chris Paul in, and obviously it's made a world of difference. So the first thing I'll say, just to make sure that it's like sort of clear too, look, this was a really bad organization, and now it's like we're a playoff organization again. It's where it's supposed to be. The expectations are high again. So I want to first like give them credit, because that is a part of what they've built. So as much as we're pissed off right now, I'm so happy that we're talking Suns basketball again, and that we're talking relevant Suns basketball, and that I can even be this disappointed. So I do want to just like say that. Having said that, though, I am then right in step with you, where there's like there's a huge disconnect in the equity of what they're bringing in as well. It feels like what James Jones is valuing and what Monty's asking for, like those things aren't jiving. Like, if you're not going to play, because you touched on it like lightly, but TJ and Ross, if you're not going to play them, then like what is the point of going out and paying them, right? Like why are we even messing with it? And like Warren's part of that deal and whatever, but there are guys that they brought back that clearly James or whoever in the front office must think, well, these guys could be helpful. Well, Monty doesn't see it that way. They paid Shamet because Monty must have seen it that way. That's the only, I can't imagine. Like, that has to be a Monty ask. Like, how do you pay a guy 4 years, 40 before he even plays on your roster? And it's all because of a relationship you had prior. So I think this guy's just stubborn, and like it was stubborn in a good way in terms of getting this thing turned around. But he's just the Mark Jackson dude. He has to be the coach before the coach, because someone else can unlock this. Like, I'm still looking at this roster, and I'm looking at it, and the injury's killed, right? Like, obviously that really, really hurts. But again, like we kind of knew with Paul, the 8-1's more of a surprise and definitely a kick in the gut. But I still look at this and I'm like, look, man, if the Clippers are scrapping together around Russell, you know what I mean? Like, if these guys, like if these other teams, I keep going back to that. I watch other teams scrap and find ways to be competitive in series that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yep.
And then there's this team that still has, you're leading with KD and Book, and that should be a lot of times enough to get you into a conference final.
Enough. Yeah.
To just get you to a conference final and be competitive in these closeout games. Like, if you lose this game, like if they lose this game tonight by 5, I'm probably not even disheartened. And I might be saying like, hey, there's like, yeah, it's going to take these guys time to gel. We all kind of knew that. We knew they had to kind of change the roster because they did give up some depth, obviously. But man, wow.
But what have they done, right? Like, here's the thing. Why go out and pay DeAndre Ayton a max contract when you know the coach doesn't want him there? They got into a verbal spat in the playoffs last year in a blowout. Then he gets paid. Monty doesn't even go to his press conference, doesn't talk to him all off season.
Yeah, that part's a huge failure to me. You're right. I'm totally with you on this. I just want to like champion this before I forget.
Yeah, and like, so you keep him all year. You and I were on the train. You got to move DeAndre Ayton probably by the trade deadline, right? Like, we want him to work. We're U of A guys. We want DeAndre Ayton to work. He's oozing potential. Any basketball like guy will tell you that. But it's been clear since last postseason that he wasn't Monty's guy. He doesn't have a role in the team. They were never going to use him correctly. So why pay him? Why keep him? And then to capitalize on that and not do anything else in the offseason to make yourself better, you go out and you get like fringe bench guys. And that's who they are. Have they had nice games? Yes. Damian Lee was a good shooter all season, but you knew what he was. He was your ninth, 10th guy. He was the ninth, 10th guy on the Warriors. Why do you think he's going to be any different on the Suns? And you go out, you roll the dice. You've seen campaign what he is, right? He's not a sixth man. He's not. He's your seventh or eighth guy. There's always going to be better backup point guard options. And you have like you said, a 40-year-old point guard running the ship that gets hurt in the playoffs every year. And you roll the dice and say, you know what, campaign can run the team. No, he cannot. And this playoff showed it. And they showed it last year too. When you have a guy like campaign bringing the ball up whenever he did, and his first inclination is let me shoot a walk-up three when you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on the team. That's not, what are we doing? Right? And like James Jones has proven that he's a good GM when you want to make a big trade. But anywhere else, he can't team build. He's scared to death. He pisses down his leg at the side of the NBA draft because he made one huge mistake by not getting Tyrese Halliburton. And then every year since then, he's been so scared to make a draft pick that he trades every pick he gets. So you're not going to get better through the draft. He's proven he can't sign like a free agent. I don't like Jay Crowder, but they alienated Jay Crowder. And then they did nothing at the deadline to get better besides Kevin Durant, which again, I make that move 10 times out of 10 because you have to. But they did nothing else. And we're sitting here wondering why we're at where we're at. They're out of the postseason. But when you look at the decisions that have been made with this team, it's so apparent why we're at where we're at. It was waiting to happen. You knew Chris Paul was going to get hurt. He gets hurt in the playoffs every year. He always has. And he's only getting older, right? And then you don't get a viable backup center. You don't get a viable backup point guard. You don't shore up the wing depth like you should. And then you do go get two guys and you're afraid to use them. It was just a organizational failure on every front. And I get the Robert Sarver stuff was probably a distraction, but it shouldn't have been enough of a distraction to ruin this window that they had. And this team, as good as it was, we can't really put on James Jones. He didn't draft Devin Booker. That was Ryan McDonough, and he was a shit GM too, but he did get one thing right. Drafted the best shooting guard in the league. And James Jones did two things right, but they weren't two things that happened in the same window. He traded for Chris Paul. You got one good year out of Chris Paul. He traded for Kevin Durant, but he did it too late. He could have gotten the trade done in the summer. That's been well documented. He probably could have got the exact same trade done. Now, granted, there were circumstances that made this trade get done when it did with the whole Kyrie Irving nonsense. But if he would have put his nuts on the table and just done it in the offseason, this team would have been much better. Kevin Durant would have got acclimated way quicker, and they would have been in a different spot. It was just organizational failure from the top down, and I don't know where they go from here. Because you have to let Monty go, probably, right? Because like you said, he's done nothing to make the team better since 2 years ago. He doesn't make adjustments, and he's lost the team, it looks like. James Jones, I don't know what you do. More than likely, you kind of have to let him go because same thing, he hasn't done anything besides make a big trade. Well, you can get you and I could have done that. We could have made the Kevin Durant deal, right? Who's making this team better? And the scary thing about it is when you look at who's available, it's like Mike Budenholzer, who can't make adjustments to save his life. He got lucky because he had Giannis, and now he's canned. You got Nick Nurse, who had one great year in Toronto and ever since has done nothing. So I don't know where this Suns team goes. I'm sure I'm being very hyperbolic and I'm being very reactionary, and I'm sure that they'll do something to make this team better. At least I hope so. But I don't see it because the window is so small.
Yeah, I don't know why I think they can fix it. I mean, I don't see why it's not fixable. I mean, you're talking about like, kind of your complaints around the roster, and I think mine would be too, are like somewhat simple fixes in terms of the role players, like upgrading your 8th and 9th guy to play with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant should be relatively simple. I mean, they should have a little bit better of an understanding. You can talk to those guys. They can probably tell you exactly what they need, frankly. So as long as you have a good relationship there, you should be able to find pieces. So I think they can still fix this roster, and there's still plenty of window. I didn't really fully expect for them to win this year. I think, as you mentioned, if they had had this roster full year, or going into the deadline, understanding what they needed around KD, I think it might be different. So I don't doubt the ability to retool in the offseason, especially but we might see a new front office doing so. I mean, like that's I think very possible that we just see Ishbia bringing his guys, which is just sort of a normal move for ownership, anyways. But given the abject failure of the last 2 elimination games, that seems like a move. So I think Nick Nurse. I mean, it doesn't have to be him. I think you can identify guys in this league that know how to work with players. I mean, and if you can get it wrong and then get it right halfway through the season again. I mean, the NBA coaching world is a weird one, but I just know what I've been seeing isn't it. So I think those changes happen, and I think it's still a workable roster to build around. And yeah, the window isn't going to be for Everdom, but I think you have some flexibility with Chris Paul now, so I think they can do some things. I'm not super down on what you have, and it's still a strong core and some pieces that are movable. Everybody says everything's not movable in the NBA until it moves.
Yeah, and I get that. But when I look at the roster, you have 2 major decisions to make player-wise this year, right? Who's going to take Chris Paul? Are you going to just flat out cut him and eat 15 mil? Are you going to be able to move him? Maybe Oklahoma City wants him back just as because he's on our expiring. I don't know. DeAndre Ayton has completely not tanked his trade stock, but it's definitely hurt. Who's taking that guy right now? And giving you a good package, right? It's not about trading the player. Like you said, everybody's movable, but you got to make the right deal. And if you're not able to move those guys, where's the money to go get that 6th, 7th, 8th guy? Who's out there that you can get? I saw the free agency for wing depth this offseason, and it's terrible. It's awful. Who's out there that makes this team that much better? That's the scary thing for me. And I don't trust James Jones to sign anybody. I don't trust him to draft anybody. And like you said, maybe that's where the big change happens, is they make that move in the front office. But even then, man, I know I'm being very, very reactionary right now, and it's very unlike me, but I've been a Suns fan my whole life. And this is the best team we've ever had in terms of star power. And it's so fractured right now. It's 2 guys that you should be able to build around. Devin Booker's one of the best young players in the league. Like I said, best shooting guard. I'll argue with your mama on that any day of the week. He showed it all playoffs. Kevin Durant, everybody wants to play with Kevin Durant. But it would be different if you didn't have those contracts on the table, right? That DeAndre Ayton one where he's got 3 more years on a bloated contract and he's just a shell of himself. And then an ancient Chris Paul. I don't know if you have ideas what you would do, but I'm a little lost on what I think they can do this offseason.
I just think there's a lot that happens, man. This is why I just paused on this, right? At some point, Andrew Wiggins was the most unplayable contract, worst contract in the league. And frankly, DeAndre Ayton has that kind of talent. So maybe it is just as simple as a philosophy change, a change in some of the culture, a fresh look for him. Maybe everybody wants the fresh start Ayton somewhere else. Maybe the fresh start happens internally. So I'm not saying that's necessarily the answer, but there's a lot of different answers. And maybe they just do it culturally up until the All-Star break and revive his value and then make a move. There's just a lot of ways and things that can happen and shift. And so I just can't prognosticate all of it. What I would expect is a change in the front office, and then let's see what kind of direction, they want to go. The guys they believe in, what they bring in, how that makes sense. But I just think some of the pieces are a little more movable and a little more flexible than we think. And when you have those 2 guys, the reason I still believed in anything at all, which, some of that, again, was just kind of fan, come on, let's not completely give up yet. I don't know how much faith I truly had today, but part of why you're going to believe is because you have Booker and KD, and those guys are around. And
if those guys are around, then you got a chance.
Yeah, totally. I get it. It's just, we got to see it, man. We got to see what they're going to do. You got to think, right? Anytime that we have a new owner in any sport, you typically will see large scale changes, right? And
keep in mind, the last owner was Sarver, and it probably does take a while to get that poison out. I know you're going to talk about Ishbia, but that kind of needs to be said too. He's gone, and now he'll be gone for a full season of culture change. And I think that matters too, just even the way the building is.
Yeah, totally. But like what I was going to say is I would expect large scale changes because anytime there's a new ownership, Monty Williams isn't Ishbia's guy. James Jones isn't Ishbia's guy. Ishbia's guys are going to be Kevin Durant because he signed off on that trade. And he's obviously going to keep Devin Booker because that's the heart and soul of the team. But I would say anybody else is on the table, right? And I would buckle up, Suns fans. I think it's going to be a wild, wild offseason. You're going to see either big trades, you're going to see firings. I would not rule out Kyrie Irving coming to the desert because at this point, Ishbia is going to try anything, because you just got punked, and I agree with you, dude. A healthy Suns team against this Nuggets team, I think we win. We match up well with them. Ayton has historically played well against Jokic. He just lost his mind apparently this offseason, lost full confidence. Chris Paul, he's done. He's cooked. But all in all, if everything is healthy, I think we could win this series. But that's not what happened. And going forward, Ishbia is going to be you know what? Let's make some big changes. And I think anything's on the table. And if James Jones sticks around, expect a big trade. That's what I would expect because that's all he seems to he's capable of doing. If he's gone, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of unknown. And if it's a coaching change, that's equally as interesting because the whole Monty Williams identity is mid-range. And that's what this team is built for. And I don't know, man. I don't want to say it sounds so stupid, but I'm scared to see what happens. But I think it's more I'm nervous to see what happens because I could see a new owner getting in there and being very reactionary, like we're being right now, or I'm being right now, and just blowing it up, right outside of the two guys. And maybe that is what needs to happen. I don't know. I truly don't know, but I don't even care about the rest of the playoffs. We're going to cover it. Don't fret. We're going to cover it. But I'm at the point right now where I just want to fast forward to the offseason and see what the hell happens. And my soccer team's the same way. Chelsea's in disarray, and it's all the same reasons. And so I'm in equal headspace with two of my favorite teams where I'm just I need to fucking get to the offseason and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm absolutely right there with you, brother. And I will say too, I've defended Ayton. Look, there's no defending him in this series. There's just not. So, for the fans that are really want to move off of him, I was pretty patient with him. But if you tell me he absolutely has to go, and especially if management decides, whatever management is or looks like, decides that he has to go, I'm with it. Right. I mean, look, changes are going to happen when you don't win. It's a results thing. It's just what this is. You absolutely have to win in this league. There are no other options. And if you don't do that, then there are going to be changes. That's absolutely what's going to happen. So yeah, buckle up, man.
So let's talk about it really quick. Let's have an uncomfortable conversation. I don't typically like doing this, but only because his behavior was as such the whole series of just not vibing with the team, obviously not vibing with the coach, lack of effort in both series, struggled mightily in both series. Rib contusions, when your team has their back on the line, facing elimination, is it fair to say most impact players, most stars would still strap it up and go play?
Yeah, the guy's 7. I mean, look, yeah, I would think so. I mean, I just honestly, there's a world where this is hard to imagine, a 7-footer misses a game that looks like he does because of banged up ribs. And now, of course, dude, it might hurt way more than I could ever possibly know. And I might be completely talking out of my ass. We'll never know. That's what this is. It's conjecture. It's speculation with an injury. But it's a tough pill to swallow given his body language and the other stuff going on. There's no doubt about it, which is why, if you told me, eventually it comes out 6 months from now, Devin Booker hated that guy and he wanted him out of the building, and then he's gone, then he has to go. That's the thing, we just never really know. And so it's just speculation. It's reading of body language. Are you a body language expert? I don't really claim to be. How injured is injured? 30%, 40%? Was he 10% of himself? I don't really know how to do that. So it's really tough to like comment on, but yeah, dude, it's just been a tough look for Ayton. There's no doubt about it. Like, however you want to slice this and place the blame pie on whatever portions of it you want, it just wasn't a good series for him, plain and simple. And now he's a max guy, and so now he's going to get max critique, or $30 million critique at least. It's not super max by any means, but the guy's getting paid.
It's been a slow build up to this point, right? Because Ayton, from the moment he was drafted, has kind of planted these self-destructing bombs for himself. The comments immediately when he was drafted was like, what's your main motivation in the NBA? And he said, my next contract. That rang alarm bells, right? Getting suspended for almost half the season because you're smoking weed, or it never came out, but that's what I assume it was, or HGH or whatever. Tough look. Last year, getting into a fight with your head coach, another tough look. Then this year, you watch, like you just said, we're not body language experts, but it doesn't take a freaking genius to watch Kevin Durant, the ultimate competitor, Devin Booker, the ultimate competitor, sit there and berate him on the bench and say, you need to run back, you need to do this, and him walk away and go sit on the bench by himself. You want to talk about, I would never call DeAndre Ayton a bust because he's an 18-10 guy. But in terms of his like Phoenix fandom, when we go back and look back at this, his legacy, it's going to be one of those where we look back and we're like, God, that guy's, what a miss that was, right? And it doesn't help that Luka Doncic got drafted right after him. We're not fans of his, but like, he's the face of his franchise.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It goes without saying.
We all know there's really no secret there. It's just, we do what we do.
Meanwhile, Ayton's done all of that, has never been able to assert himself as a star, right? He's always been like the third guy, the fourth guy, never, even when there's been games where it's just him, he's never blown it out of the water. Just, man, I wanted him to work out so bad being a Wildcat fan. But man, what a tarnished legacy this guy's going to have.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Unless there's like something that doesn't fit the narrative that we're being fed, it just seems super likely that this guy's not around, like one way or another. He and that's the thing. Like, I look at him and Monty, and they're like the same problem. Like they're like married to each other as a problem, and because Monty couldn't figure it out, and because Ayton couldn't figure it out, they might both lose their jobs. And Ayton will continue to get paid. I don't know what it looks like for Monty, but like that's what it feels like. It feels like both of those guys are going to be the ones that wear this. And I mean, having said that, we can talk about like KD didn't play great, man. Like, he was not incredible in this series.
No.
He was
missed
still
a lot
in the
of the easy shots.
Very good, but he was by no means like great KD. I mean, because there's times where frankly he had good position, he had good looks, and still missed them, right? So we had open looks at three and struggled early with that in the Clippers series, and then that kind of carried over and continued. So hey man, he's still really good, and like we've talked about, I'm going to make that move again and again. I'm not going to worry about this, and like there's still more years of KD, so I'm not. That's not the panic, but no matter how you slice up the blame, like it's really going to fall on Ayton and Monty, and I get why. I mean, because the Chris Paul thing's an injury thing that we knew was going to happen, and we're going to continue to rest on KD and Book for a long time. So it'd be great if it was a close game and we could blame it on them missing some shots down the stretch. I wish that was the case, actually.
I wish we could blame it on injuries. You know what I mean? Like you said,
that'd be nice too. Yeah.
We lose this game by 5 points. It's easy to go, well, you know what? We were missing two max players. When you get blown out back-to-back games, back-to-back years, that falls on individual players. It falls on the coach. It's the whole organization. And right now, the NBA and NBA fans are laughing at Phoenix. And you're right. It's nice to be relevant again. It's nice to be good again. But like, to get laughed out of the playoffs 2 years in a row, as a Suns fan, I can't tolerate that. Even as a basketball fan, I can't tolerate that. That sucks. In no universe should the Suns have been able to trade for Kevin Durant and get the same exact results 2 years in a row. It shouldn't happen. Right?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That's why there's going to be more. dude, there's no doubt there's going to be more change. I mean, we're being reactionary, quote unquote, but like there's no way that they don't make, again, like more big changes. But I mean the thing I will go back to, and this is why I remain like optimistic, is that you generally have to do that. You have to retool a roster after you make a move like this. It just doesn't typically, like Kawhi is the exception, right? When he went to Toronto, but you typically just don't make that big move and have that immediacy.
Yeah.
Like not without having at least a season. You know what I mean? You can't just do
An
that in
off
10
season.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to have that. So, we're going to see changes, and I just hope they put people in place and that, Ishbia turns this thing around.
Yeah. Durant getting hurt that 3-week spell, he was never the same after that either. So who knows? Maybe he's still banged up and that's why he's missing those gimmies, right? Because Kevin Durant's always been a very efficient player. He's never been the chuck it up, let's go, 10 for 27 type of player gets 25 points. That's never been his game.
No.
He's always been a shot maker. He's always been efficient, and he was never that in the playoffs this year. It was always, man, Kevin Durant's kind of struggling, but Booker's really turning it on. So an offseason where everybody gets to get healthy, maybe some changes occur. Hopefully they make the right decisions in terms of just filling out the roster correctly this time around. Because the thing that's frustrating, dude, is you look at that Nuggets team, right? They built that team perfectly for their star, right? Jokic is a big man that can suck up a defense, kick it out to the perimeter. If he gets doubled, they have Jamal Murray there, who's a good scorer. He struggled a lot this series, but still he is who he is. Bruce Brown, great pickup, great 3-and-D guy. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope just hitting shots, perfect guy for Jokic. Michael Porter Jr., just a stretch 6'10" small forward, perfect to put next to him. And you look at the Suns, who've had Devin Booker, whose talent has been proven for years now. And they went out and they got Kevin Durant, who is a perfect fit for Booker. But like outside of that, what have they done? And that's the tough pill to swallow. And that's why I have so much anger towards James Jones. It's because, dude, you've had the blueprint in front of you for at least 3 years. At least. And you haven't done it. You looked at your roster, you said you have one really awesome player, generational player, and you make like one move a deadline, whether it's the offseason or the trade deadline, and you backfill it with garbage. It's a tough pill to swallow, dude. It just really is.
I've fired James Jones at least 10 times already. So,
Yeah,
I mean, it won't, I'll be fine if they move on. This entire front, I've done it with Monty too. Like, that has been the one thing I've been probably consistently quiet. Like, when we text, like, Monty drives me crazy, man. Like, he is driven me crazy for a long time, but it's so tough because he's, like, been a part
Coach
of some
of the
success.
year.
Yeah, and he's, like, such a nice guy. Like, I want to like Monty Williams.
Players
and I
seemingly
do
like him.
Yeah, like he seems like a good guy, and so I don't actively want to just crush him, but I just think we're lacking so badly in that department. And
Yep.
It's a team that needs a tough guy too, and that's what sucks is you have a $30 million center that's just not a tough guy, and like they are missing that too, and they're not getting it from their head coach because like Monty's passive, man. That's what I mean. I feel like him and Ayton could play like lob ball tennis for like 12 hours and neither of them would say a word to each other and then would just both go home and then mumble under their breath to their wives how much they hate each other. Like it's just the most annoying shit to watch. Like I just can't stand it. Like
it's so evident they don't like each other. It's so evident.
But it's all in passive aggressive behavior. Like nothing leads to fire. Nothing ever leads to energy. Ayton never gets pissed and shoves it to Monty. Monty never shoves it to him. Like unless this was like finally maybe this was it again. Maybe they told him, hey, your ribs do hurt. Sit down. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know. Like if that's how it happened, then I guess great. So every time we're in an elimination game, then Monty takes a stand. Like, well, that ain't it either, dude. Like that's too little, too late shit. So,
You're
that's
right.
That's been my problem there a long time. I mean, and it's regardless of what the roster looked like. Last roster was much deeper. This one was shorter with like more
better
firepower, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and in neither, same result. So
You're-
what's the common denominator?
You're so right though,
Monty.
dude. Like look at this series. We get beat both games in Denver. He refuses to play TJ Warren and Terrence Ross. Comes back to Phoenix, starts playing those guys. We win 2 games in a row. Well, then people start getting hurt, and now it's too late. You've already dropped 2 winnable games in Denver. Your back's to the wall, and your adjustment sucks. You weaken your bench, and I don't know, man. You're right. And you know what? Like you have said it without saying it numerous times this whole season. Because there were many times during the season where we were both like, dude, what's going on with the Suns? Like, I get they have injuries, but man, the talent's there. Why are they not winning? Why are they dropping games to Orlando? Why are they dropping games to the Thunder? And it never got better. And he just showed who he is. Like you said, great guy, great story. Players coach outside of Ayton for some reason. But strategist, not so much. And I don't know, dude. I don't know where they go from here, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's tough to watch the Lakers right now with Darvin Ham out there making great adjustments.
That's what I'm saying. Like, go pick up random guys, apparently.
Apparently.
Any guy in the world is possibly a better coach than what we have going on. So it seems.
And if we're keeping it honest, look at the Milwaukee Bucks right now. They fired Mike Budenholzer, coach of the year, won a finals. And who are they interviewing? I don't know about you, Henny. I haven't seen them interview a single big name. It's like Toronto Raptors assistant coaches. You know what I mean? It's like analytics guys. It's not anybody big. And that's a team that is going to go out and try to win the damn thing again next year. So maybe you're right. Maybe I'm thinking the wrong way, right? Like maybe I'm just looking at the top of the trash pile. And really, if I dig a little bit deeper, maybe there is a hidden gem. But
I'd like to think so, man. I mean, I really do. Like this league seems to. I mean, look. Spoelstra is like a weird example, but he's like the epitome of the best one. Of like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then he's winning. So like, I don't think it always has to be who you think it is or whatever. It doesn't have to be. Dude, there's short attention spans in this league. Like that seems kind of obvious too. Like there are a few guys in this league that can really coach a team for a long, long time.
Spoelstra.
You just for a lot of these teams, you just have to catch a little something in a bottle, and if you can just find a guy who gives a team something to believe in, whether it's because that's the thing too. Like the offensive identity has just really been a credit to what Chris Paul has done, and then that's transferred to Booker. And now, if anything that they've done at all in this season, it's really because like you have Book and KD. We know you're going to score some points and have explosive games. That much is clear. But there's not really a defensive identity anymore. So I'm like, what is he bringing to the table?
Now, let me ask you, and this was posed in our group chat with Hesse. Do you take a serious look at Steve Nash? You know, team legend.
I said that like because I mean him and KD can't have like do they have an okay they don't have a good relationship.
No, I think he loves Nash like legitimately loved him in Golden State. That's why they brought him to Brooklyn to appease KD. He didn't get along with Kyrie, but you know, club legend, like face of the franchise, pretty much gets along really well with.
I don't like
Kevin Durant. Yeah, I know. I don't love it either, but
I want to go on record saying that I hate it. I need a coach that if he sucks, I could blame him for sure.
Yeah, and you'll feel bad if you hate on Nash.
I mean, the one thing I could say maybe is if like the rest of the fan base feels the opposite of the way, like maybe if you like flip it in the way in your brain where Steve Nash will always be the good guy here. So if like Steve Nash goes into press conferences and acts like an asshole and says, you know, Booker's not getting back on defense, like the whole valley will then have to like melt their brain and decide whose side they're on. It's just too much. There's ways I almost flipped it and I hurt myself again. I don't think I could wrap my head around that. So we just can't do it.
Just selfishly.
This is just for me. Like, I just don't think I can personally handle it. Or if like the failure continues as I have to look at more Steve Nash failure face, like,
yeah,
I mean,
true.
I did that. You know what I mean? I've been on that ride and like, I loved it, Steve, and it's not your fault. You know what I mean? Like that had a lot to do with, which by the way, like, and this is like, whatever, dude, but Jokic, you should have never been suspended. But if any fan base can cry for it, just let the Suns make their jokes. Let them
Yeah.
pretend to cry for this, okay? We've been through a lot. We've had guys suspended for far less worse. So shut up, Denver fans. Like, just let us have our jokes, okay? Just that's all we wanted.
Do we think now that it's over, the party's freaking over, the streamers have been popped and, whatever, do we think Denver can go on and win the whole thing?
I really don't, but I'm not excited about anybody who's left. I still feel like whoever comes out of Lakers Warriors is better in the
Mhm.
West, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Lakers match up really well with Denver.
Really
Like,
well.
I think, yeah. So I mean, I think the Lakers honestly have little to. I mean, I think Denver's going to give them a run, but I do think the Lakers can absolutely win in that series. And then, even though the East has been wild, I mean, if you still told me the Celtics ended up in it, they've been there before. I know they want it. I mean, I don't know if they can put it together, but if they make it, that's still a really tough team.
Yeah. A friend of the pod, Justin Spears, local Tucson guy, he has a conspiracy theory on Twitter that this whole playoffs is maybe a little bit scripted, and maybe they're trying to gear up a run for LeBron James to be, his documentary, and they're going to have it rigged to where the Lakers and the Celtics play each other. Bronny Jr. just committed to USC, so he's on his way to the NBA here soon. And turns out Justin put that out there, I think jokingly. I think, Justin, you can let us know on Twitter. But turns out there is a 30 for 30, or I think it's either 30 for 30 or it might be the same people that made the Chicago Bulls series. They have been filming this playoffs, and they've been filming LeBron James. So what do you think, Henny? Is the fix in?
Look, man, I say this. I said this
frozen
joking.
envelope situation.
I did say this jokingly today. That like I am the first guy, in my typical old buddies, college buddies group chat to be like, someone will bring me some conspiracy theory, and I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then turn around 8 seconds later, same me. As soon as we're talking the NBA, I'm doing backflips to reverse my fortunes to tell you this is the greatest conspiracy I've ever seen in my life. So I'm always in on NBA conspiracies. Like, they're always trying to screw me, which is why I never really can feel good as a Suns fan, and why I always want to collect all the powers that be, because I'm like, maybe they want to write a story for KD. Maybe there is a narrative for KD. KD's a main character.
Yeah.
They have to have a narrative for him. So. Yeah, dude, I'm always with these. I mean, we'll propagate this. I mean, if the Lakers and Celtics are in the finals, it's rigged. Rigged.
It's definitely one of those. It's definitely one of those verbal memes, right? Like where you're like, dude, you're crazy. You son of a bitch, I'm in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great one, by the way. That's one of my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it totally, I agree with you, dude. It's like, nah, shut up, dude. Like, this is just LeBron stands saying stuff. But then you stop and you think about it and you're like, holy shit. Like, the Lakers got through the play-in. They beat a Grizzlies team with turmoil. Now they're playing a Warriors team that also is aging. What the hell is going on here, right? So I don't know. I mean, greater conspiracies have happened in the NBA. I mentioned it briefly, right? The whole frozen envelope Patrick Ewing thing. I don't know, man. Who freaking knows? But if we get to the finals and it's Lakers Celtics, that's all I'm going to talk about.
My team's out, so I'm full in on conspiracy and complete conjecture now. So now everything goes, everything's wild. Back to everybody. Everybody sucks. I knew it. This guy's trash. We start slamming everybody.
Look at these frauds.
Everybody's
the biggest
a fraud.
Frauds in the playoffs.
Everybody's But I'm like, anything to deflect the pain off of my pain now. We're coming for you, NBA. Nobody's safe. So you better have a nice game. Embiid, we're looking at you.
Yeah. So let's briefly go through it now that our team is out of it and we can fully just focus. You mentioned the Nuggets. You don't know if they can really make it through, but I guess that's wholly dependent on the Warriors and the Lakers. Warriors absolutely gave it to the Lakers last night, but by and large, this whole series, the Lakers have been just way bigger than the Warriors could handle. LeBron's slowed down a little bit, but he's still doing LeBron things. Anthony Davis, when he's not getting just lightly tapped in the head, has been very good. How do you see that series ending? You think the Lakers pull it off tomorrow, or what?
It's interesting, man, because when Draymond goes, like the Warriors look fine and they don't look that much smaller. And then all of a sudden Looney's a little better. And some
Yeah.
of these other guys start to play a little better. And I ultimately imagine the Lakers are going to find a way to do this twice, but if they don't put them away in Game 6, they've definitely got problems. Then they've really, really done it, and they really have some problems. And dude, as much as it's easy to like, this is not one of those ones where it's really easy because we know that AD in the right. Although now he got knocked out, right? Is he going to play?
What a weird situation that was, right? I was talking
We're like,
to
tell me what's going on.
I was talking to friends at work about that. The bump in the head, and again, this is like the rib contusion thing, right? Like, who amongst us here can really talk about a sports injury in the NBA? We're not at that level. We never have been, never will be. So who's to say how hard he really got hit? But it didn't look that hard. He got wheelchaired out, couldn't walk. And then immediately after the game, they're like, "Oh, he's fine." Is this a Paul Pierce situation? Did he shit his pants? Like, what? I don't know what we're dealing with here. So I'm
You just want to talk about the Paul Pierce thing for like 5 minutes? I'm down if you want to do that.
We had to slip that one in there because, dude, even 15 years later, the fact that a grown man shit his pants on live television, got wheelchaired out,
Yeah.
and for a decade refuted it, and then finally came out and said, "Yeah, I did shit my pants," like all timer.
That's got to be like that guy. That tells me that Paul Pierce spent his entire life using the handicap bathroom, and it finally came back to bite him. You know what I mean? Like he's been luxuriating in that stall as like real men that needed that restroom had to wait outside. And and then so Chris, I'm really glad you brought that up. I just needed something that had nothing to do with anything.
Okay, first of all, though, I'm not going to shame Paul Pierce if he ever did use a handicap restroom, because that shit is luxury. Let me tell you, we got those at the office, and I definitely use that bad bitch whenever I get a chance.
I've used them too, man. Who doesn't like a corner office? I mean, look,
you can't see my shoes. You can't identify the person in the stall. That's me, baby. That's where I'm at.
I think when you know your surroundings and you're aware of who's around you and that sort of thing, you can make a fair decision about whether that's a good opportunity. I'm telling you, this guy must have used up some equity. If you're shitting your pants and have to be wheeled off an NBA court on ESPN, you've done something. Yeah,
he definitely cut off a
did it, and he just maybe
point.
he did something totally different. But I'm just this is all pure speculation and shit talk at this point. And this time I mean it literally.
What you did there.
We're doing that now. Yeah, we're completely. But I think anything goes in that series too, because I just don't know. I would think the script wins out in the Lakers. I mean, so I would say Lakers. But if you all of a sudden tell me AD's not playing for some reason in Game 6, then that turns that whole thing on its head again. Because that Lakers depth is only as deep as Anthony Davis, really.
Yeah. But he's been so freaking phenomenal all playoffs.
When he's good, he's so good.
Oh my God, that last series against the Grizzlies, him just blocking like 5 shots a game, like just being prime AD again. Like Jokic better hope that he just fractured his vertebra, because if there's a guy in the playoffs still that can like put up with his just bullshit, and it is bullshit how he plays, it's Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is going to annihilate his shit. So the Lakers match up very, very well against this Nuggets team, and they better hope to God the Warriors take care of business, because the Warriors don't match up well with this Nuggets team, to be frank. So this next couple of days will be very interesting. On the other side of the country, the Celtics, they pulled off a big win tonight, but God, man, they look fractured, don't they? It looks like Joe Mazzulla, or however you say his name, he's definitely he's learning on the fly for sure. And
can we just talk about coaches' challenges too, by the way? I'm just like as soon as you said his name, I'm like, dude, why are these guys challenging in the second quarter? Like, what in God's name would possibly think that would make any sense? In
Ty
what
Lue
world?
did it against us, remember? And we're like,
in what world, guys? What the hell is going on? I granted, I know it's new, but like, having not watched an NFL Sunday, you don't just like willy-nilly throw challenge around on a first quarter first down play. Like, that's not how this works.
I think you mentioned it, dude. It's like, it's new. It's a button. who amongst us hasn't had a button in front of us and just wanted to press it? It's like being on a game show. You might not know the answer, but you're certainly going to hit that damn button, you know?
Must feel so good to hit that button, man. I bet
mean,
it feels just
the
so
Kings did
empowering.
it all season, dude. Light the beam, baby. You know what I mean?
Which, by the way, Kings, I hope you had a fun season because you are like on full scale track, unless you again have an incredible season and actually take it a step further to just get absolutely have your own
Shit
beam lit.
pumped.
Because like this is how it goes in the NBA. In case you're Suns fans, in case you needed a reminder, get welcome to get on this shit train again and just eat it right on up. But Kings, if you are unable to light that beam in the playoffs next year, you have got it coming with that beam. That beam is going to become your enemy.
Yeah, things gonna be collecting some cobwebs. I'm sure of that. But yeah, that series, dude. The Sixers look good. Embiid is a monster. Harden's playing well. Tyrese Maxey's good. They're getting the most out of their bench players. The Celtics are on the ropes a little bit, man. It's getting interesting. I still think the Celtics pull it off though, because again, the fix is in. But man, that's ending up being a fun series. But if we end up in this playoffs and it's like a Nuggets, if it's like a Nuggets Heat finals, is anybody going to watch? No.
I mean, I'm not going to want to. I can tell you that. I mean, it's going to be on, in the background.
Listen,
but no, I don't want to watch Jimmy Butler and his legion of misfits versus Jokic like this. No, it's not what I want.
Henny.
Yeah.
If it's a Heat Nuggets finals night, and there's also the chance that my wife wants to watch 90 Day Fiance, she might win that argument. Right?
I know. And you're like, hey, remember what happened in 2023? Yeah, we watched I think it was 90 Day Fiance back to back, right?
Yeah. Well, Jokic, oh my God. Jokic and Butler just fucking fought in the middle of the court. God.
Yeah, basically just both with like the two best arm bars in the league, just kind of cruising down the court with that forearm extended. Yeah, it's going to be.
I guess
what a joy.
That's the only redeeming quality of that series, right? Jimmy Butler would try to fuck up like Jokic at one point. That would be fun. He'd get enough of his bullshit and he would let it fly.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
It is in its own little way fun to watch Jimmy, but and that team cannot win.
We can't let it happen.
Like that cannot happen because like if you're telling me the Suns roster sucks, like just go read through that Heat roster again and tell me exactly what is working over there.
Yeah,
I don't
their
understand.
Point guard with the 40-pound ass. They're Jimmy Butler, who all he can do is throw his body into people like a undersized Giannis, and then Bam, who has the same issues as Ayton. Yeah, we're the same team as the Heat. It's just they have a better coach.
I've also never known less about the NBA. I'd like to say that too.
Yeah, everything we thought we knew got thrown out the window.
I'm so glad we didn't do like a pick for pick through all. I mean, I would be getting absolutely smoked. So if you came on here for any sort of NBA referendum on what you should do with your money, thank God you weren't listening to us and we weren't making picks. I would be absolutely getting destroyed. Yeah, starting with the elimination of Giannis, and everything since then has made equally as little sense. It's been incredible.
If you're coming to this pod for real conjecture and analysis, and not just two idiots talking through their fandom, you're at the wrong podcast. Go to Locked In or go to freaking The Athletic. Like, go get your analysis somewhere else because we know nothing. Because if you would have asked me, I would have told you the Grizzlies would have been good. I would have told you the Bucks would have been storming through the East, and I've been wrong on all fronts. And you've been all wrong on all fronts. We would have said the Suns would have had it figured out. Kevin Durant's just destroying worlds. We could have been more wrong. So don't come here for analysis. Let me tell you that, bud.
I am purely day to day.
Yeah,
I felt good about the Celtics today winning, and they did. So 1 in a row for me. Sort of.
But you felt cautiously optimistic about a Suns team that got blown out by 25.
For sure, I thought they would at least be competitive, and I couldn't have told you that was going to happen.
These
like
playoffs
you said, man,
are weird.
I can't go back to the Suns game. It's fine. No. It's fine. Everything's fine, dude. Everything is totally fine.
It's dead. We'll talk about it next week because we're sickos, but it's dead. I'm gonna let it lie dead for at least a few more days, and then I say that and I'm going to mention it in the morning. I'm going to see Matt Hesse and unload. So,
Oh,
Well-
yeah. What else happened in the sports world? Is there anything else worth talking about? Can we get away from the NBA? Was there anything else in the entire world?
The NHL playoffs are going on right now, so we need to have Ben Crown over on.
We should. Yeah.
I did talk to him. He's willing to come on. So if the people want Ben, I think it's the right time to do it. You know, we're grieving. We need some humor in our lives. Let's bring Benny Crown over on. He'll give you some gambling picks. He's already sending us gambling picks for the goddamn Big Ten, which
You want your early locks for the season.
yeah, time and place, Ben. Time and place. All right, let us breathe. Outside of that, baseball is getting ready to start. Well, it is started. God, that's how it locked in. The baseball.
I was like, well, I mean, they've been playing for sure. I mean, I'm certain of that.
Oh, dude, it's like a lawnmower though. It's going to take 7 or 8 pulls on the old string to get that bitch started. So, outside of that, no, not really. The NFL is kind of at a standstill right now. So, outside of that, guys, we'll bring you your analysis once these rounds are over. They'll probably be moved on by the next time we talk to you guys. I appreciate you all listening in and letting me get this off my chest. I legitimately feel better. I hope everybody can hear that in my voice. I came onto this pod, and Henny and I usually game plan for 5 minutes. I said, no, we're hopping the hell on. It's pure reaction time, baby. And I had to get it off my chest. This was a pure therapy session. So I thank all of you for listening. Henny, I appreciate you talking me through some things, giving me a little bit of hope. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We'll have all the stuff on there. Henny will be trashing the playoffs, the rest of the playoffs on our Twitter. And follow and subscribe to this podcast. The more we grow, the better we are able to do this. We do spend a good amount of time on this, believe it or not. And I do look forward to talking through this shit once a week with all of you. Henny, you got any closing words?
No, I think talking through this shit really is a good closer.
Back to Paul Pierce, baby. Way to finish it.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. We're going to wheel on out of here, folks.
Yeah,
wheel
the
on
Suns
out.
season is the same thing that was at the bottom of that freaking wheelchair. So, all right. We'll talk to you guys next week. Be safe. Have a good one. Bye.